Welcome back. The Nigerian government last week got approval from the Senate to extend the state of emergency on Adamawa, Borno and Yobe. What is the implication of this decision on these states? Joining us to talk about this is a security expert, Dr. Lionel Rawlins von Frederick of the American University of Nigeria here in Yola. Welcome to the program.
Inakwana.
Good, Inakwana. Barka da Safiya.
Barka. Sanu da Aiki.
Interesting. I'm impressed.
I'm getting better.
Yeah,
small.
Okay, good to have you on the show.
So how are you?
I'm fine.
Good.
I'm doing
Good to
well.
see you
And
again.
you?
Lovely.
Always looking young and fresh.
Fresh. Go to Cuba and Jamaica, you will look fresh.
Okay, when I grow up, I would do that. All right, let's just quickly ask you your general view or what your general take on the extension of the state of emergency on Adamawa, Borno and Yobe states.
Well, a lot of people haven't. It is a two-edged sword, you know. It's like it's sharp on both sides, because some people are for it and some people like it, and many others are against it. And they have good reasons to be for it and good reasons to be against it. I'm in the middle, but I can understand both sides. On one side, people have been inconvenienced, and it affects the economy in certain manners. But then on the other side, we are being protected. And, you know, when you militarize the place, you have enough people around to protect us. We don't see it here in Yola and Jamaica because we're not really affected by what's going on up north. But if you're up north, you'll be very happy to see the police and the military coming around. So I'm in the middle. I can live with it both ways because I can understand the implications of both sides.
Okay, yeah, you said in what you just finished saying now, you said it affects the economy in some ways. What are some ways that the state of emergency, the extension, affects the economy? What are the economic implications, rather?
Well, what happens is whenever there's a state of emergency, the international community looks at that country and they draw their own conclusions. Usually they figure that there's instability and there's problems. So if they feel that there's instability and there are problems, then what they do is they issue warnings to their countrymen, the citizens. Like, for example, the United States now have a warning to Americans not to travel to Nigeria. But if you had to travel to Nigeria, do not come up to the north. So if an investor from the United States wanted to come to Nigeria to invest, he wouldn't do it. And if he wanted to come north to invest, he really wouldn't come because he's told not to come. So economically, if there are people who want to come here and put down a business and create jobs for the people, it's not going to happen. Secondly, when you have a state of emergency, it's certain segments of the economy is affected. Right now, because it ends at 11, the only people who are affected are people who work at nights. If you have a restaurant, you're affected. If you have a bar, you are affected. If you have a hotel, maybe so. If you have a nightclub where people go dancing, you're affected. The guys who sell food on the side of the road, they're affected. And these small businesses are what drive the economy of Adamawa. Actually, small businesses drive the economy all over the world. It's not the big IBMs and the big Coca-Cola companies. It's the small businesses. So when these people cannot function and they cannot work and they cannot sell their services or their goods, then they cannot make any money. If they don't make any money, then they have to let people go. If they let people go, that's how the economy becomes affected. That is what's happening to us right here.
But you've been around since the commencement of the first part of the state of emergency,
Right.
6 months ago. And security-wise, if you were to assess the performance of Adamawa citizens and security agents, how would you assess it? What would be your take on that?
I'll put it as very good. I'll tell you why, because we haven't had much problems here. And a good assessment of to your question would be, if every day we had bombings and people being killed in the marketplace, in the restaurants, in the hotels, in the streets, then you know that the situation has collapsed and deteriorated to such an extent that we are no longer safe. The fact that nothing has happened means the security forces are really doing what they're supposed to be doing. We do not like what they do because we get in the checkpoints. Mm-hmm. You can't get to work on time. Mm-hmm. People rushing, going back and forth to get through the checkpoints. You might run into a bad cop here or a bad soldier there, but in the end, they're all doing a great job to protect us, and we haven't had much of a problem.
Well, what do you think? What do you think really, caused the extension of the state of emergency, especially in Adamawa State?
That's a good question. I've heard different things. I've heard that it is political in nature because the federal government has a problem with the leadership here. I've heard that they want to upset other people, maybe politicians. Mm-hmm. But I've also heard that, and I hope that this is the truth, that they've made a decision that the situation is not safe enough to ease up the situation and bring us out of the state of emergency, so they've decided to extend it. I hope that is the real truth. That is because the situation demands that they extend it. But we are lucky though, because right now we have at least 11 p.m. enables us to do a lot of things during the course of the day. What would really be a problem if the situation collapsed to the extent that they have to have a curfew that begins at 6, then you see what would happen to the people
just like the first part of the last 6 months.
Right, because if it does begin at 6, we'll be in trouble. And then, if it did collapse, we can go into 24-hour curfew, which means nobody moves.
Yeah, and that's just not good at all.
No, we don't ever want to go to that situation, because if we were to go to that situation, it would be really, really bad.
Okay.
Really bad for us.
All right, let's look at what the people should do now with what we have, with the extension of the state of emergency in the states. What should people do?
Just keep doing what they're doing. First of all, I must say you must obey the rules and the regulations. Don't be caught out in the street after 11 at night, because if you do, you're going to end up in some serious trouble. I know that people have accused the Nigerian military and the Nigerian police of being harsh and heavy-handed, but I would say they're not really that bad, because I've been in countries where when there's a curfew, they will shoot first and ask questions later. I've seen it in the Philippines and other different places. They will, if after 11 and they see you, they will shoot you, and then they will find out who you are after. At least here they pull you over and they harass you a little, and I would much rather to be harassed than to be shot in the back while running. Mm-hmm. And they have a reason for doing that and to be upset, because if I'm a soldier and I see you at 12 o'clock in the morning, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know if you're robbing a store, if you're a terrorist. I don't know if you're a crazy man. The fact is, don't be on the streets after 11. Keep doing what you're doing. When you go through the checkpoints, just be civil and talk to the people, answer the questions, and keep going. Because that causes the flow to go quite easily as well. It's when you go there and it becomes blocked and 10 cars trying to go through one. It's a dangerous situation, and then it's out of control, and then you anger the soldiers. Mm-hmm. So everybody just take your time and be patient. Just go through the checkpoint.
Patience is the word.
Yeah, everyone needs to be law-abiding. So far, we've not had serious issues with the populace or the people in the state and the military or the security forces. It's been quite cool, and people have been law-abiding.
Cool. It means somebody's doing a good job.
Yeah.
Or we are lucky.
Could luck really be in this? Anyway, we'll find out more on that. We have been discussing the extension of the state of emergency in the 3 states of Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe. And our guest is a security expert, Dr. Lionel Rawlins von Frederick of the American University of Nigeria here in Yola. We go on a break now, and when we come back, we look at other disadvantages of the extension of the state of emergency in the state. So stay with us. Welcome back. If you have just joined us, we are looking at the extension of the state of emergency in the 3 states of Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe. And our guest is Dr. Lionel Rawlins von Frederick of the American University of Nigeria here in Yola. Before that break, I was on the verge of asking you what other disadvantages of this extension is, because to most people, what we experience now, what we would say is not convenient for us or inconveniencing us now is just maybe the holdups at the checkpoints that tend to obstruct movement, and then the curfew we have late at night, and of which a larger or greater percentage of the population at that time should have retired to their beds, but we still have
That's
people
what you think.
who really go out at that time. Aside these two, what other disadvantages of?
Well, yeah, the people who only old people go to sleep before 11. So if you go to bed at 9 and 10, you have to be an old man or an old woman, because a lot of young people out there would much rather be on the streets until 1 and 2 in the morning, doing anything they want to do, maybe just hanging out and gisting with the friends or chilling with the friends, as we'll say. But, you know, we look at that main road in Yola, that Yola bypass road, and is one road. In a strange way, it's a bottleneck, and everyone has to go to that road. If you're going to Yola or into Jamaica, you have to go to that road, and it's a long backup, and and people lose their cool and everything. But the good thing for it is that's the only way you can pass to go through. So if you're a bad guy and you want to...
And that's why it is the only way you can get caught. Because
exactly. So, you know, on the one hand, you don't like it because it keeps you locked up in that line. Your patience is being tested. But at the same time, that's how they catch the bad guys.
Yeah, so whatever has an advantage has a disadvantage also.
Exactly. You know, it's like taking medication. It's going to cure whatever is wrong with you, but it's going to affect you in some other manner. So it's like a rose. You cannot appreciate the rose unless you have the thorns that comes with the rose. So everything has a purpose, whether good or bad. And one of the other disadvantages is that the people get angry, and when they get angry, they turn it loose on the wrong people. Instead of turning it on whoever is creating the problem in the first place, why we have a curfew or state of emergency, they turn it on the government, and they can't get to the senators, and they can't get to the governor or the president, so they take it out on the security forces. So the guys in the army or the police who are there at the checkpoints, they they're the ones who suffer the most because they're the ones who get the cursing and the yelling and the name calling and they're just doing their jobs, you know. And I'm a security person, so I've been there before. So I know how they feel, and I know all they're doing is their job, looking for the people.
Yeah, but how long do you think the state of emergency should last? More, 6 months?
That's a good question. I've seen it last a week until they get the situation under control. I've also seen it last a year or two. And but I've also, in places where they're dictators, it can last for 5 or 10 years. There are people in certain countries who grew up their entire life living on a state of emergency.
But with, you know, you've been a security expert and you've seen the situation in Adamawa State. If you are to advise, just earlier on you said the state has been, you know, on average,
pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good. If you are to advise on how long this should last, how long would you say should?
The guys who are monitoring the situation, they know what's going on, and they're the ones who are better programmed to make that determination. But I would say that when it ends in 6 months, it should be ended.
Oh,
and
so we should go through the 6 months extension.
We will go through it because they're not going to change it right now. But
how are you sure? That approval just came from the Senate. The country is still waiting for the response or the opinion or the of the House of Representatives, and already you are saying we are going to go through it.
I believe we will go through it because...
you think the House of Representatives might just go the way of the Senate?
Yeah, I think so. The reason why I think so is because of the politics involved. And if this is what the president wants, this is what the president gets. And whether or not he's playing games, political games, or whether he really believes that the situation dictates an extension is something else. But usually the Senate and the House will give the president what he wants, because nobody wants to say, oh, well, he asked me for the time for an extension and we didn't give it to him, because he'll blame it on them for not giving him. But what I would say, though, is in the next 6 months, whatever it is they're trying to accomplish, they need to be able to accomplish it, because if they don't, then the people are going to get really angry, and not just angry because they're inconvenienced, but the economy is going to really, really, really suffer, because it's suffering and it's getting worse. It's not getting any better. In the last 6 months, it really went down. And another 6 months is going to go further. Yeah. And if they don't finish this by the end of that 6-month period, something is going to have to give.
Now that we've been looking at the disadvantages of the state of emergency and all that economically disadvantage, it has disadvantages, you know, financially and otherwise. But we also need to look at the advantages of this. It sure do have this,
yes,
advantages.
The advantages are you're alive.
Yeah.
And we are alive. When there is a state of emergency, even though people see that or believe that there's instability, or that something is wrong and that the government is doing something to fix it, they see that, well, if there's always darkest just before the storm.
Yeah.
So it means that whatever is going on, they're fixing it. And then when they finish fixing it, we will come out better. So if there is in fact crime, violence and terrorism, we expect, the citizens are expecting that these forces and the government, they're going to go in and they're going to fix it. And that when it is fixed, when they come back, things are going to be better. Crime will be lower, the violence will be less, will be reduced, terrorist attacks will be reduced. They're not going to finish, they're not going to go away, but it'll come to the extent where it's under control, and not much people are getting robbed, murdered, killed, and it gives people a sense of appreciation, a sense of relief. And if the citizens are feeling good and the investors are feeling good, then as a result of the state of emergency, then things are getting better. So in a strange way, in a strange context, it does have a positive effect.
All right, looking at...
These are the later advantages of the state of emergency. It's not something that is happening like right away, but later after the state of emergency has been taken over.
Now let's look at before the first state of emergency. The first 6 months of state of emergency was declared in these 3 states. We had incidences of insurgency, attacks on so many people, and several lives were lost. But looking at the 6 months period, I think we had less reports of such incidences compared to, and we had reports of these people, these insurgents being arrested in several parts of these 3 states, and then we would see that we would say that it's reduced to some extent. Or would you say the state of emergency has not really made any impact on? Because a lot of people are of the view that this 6 months is not necessary, like extending it to another 6 months. It's not necessary because they feel all these problems have been tackled. But looking at the security situation, would you say it's all right, not just in Adamawa State now, let's extend it to other neighboring states that this affects?
Well, see, people sit at home and they make these determinations. But the people who are in the bush and out in the mountains who are really battling the bad guys, they're the ones who know better. The reasons why you see a reduction in the killing and everything and the violence is because the security forces are actively out there making sure it doesn't come here. And so they're battling them out in the north, in the fringes, so it doesn't come here. And that is why I said we are lucky to be alive, because if they weren't there, the bad guys will be coming in here and really disrupting life. So let's keep them out there. It's like the United States, their strategy is, let's keep the terrorists out of America. So they send their forces to battle them all over, because they don't want them to come to America. Because if they get into America, it's going to be trouble. So it's the same thing that's happening here. The forces are keeping them out from coming in. But people think that, oh, everything is okay, everything is cool because there's nothing happening here. But if things were happening here, you'll be happy to see a man in uniform with a gun in his hand.
Are you sure want to make friends with them?
And you'll be sure to make friends with them.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Lionel, for coming on the show again today. We'll keep a date with us next week for the same segment on security. Thank you very much.
Sanu.
Sanu da kokari.
Mieti.
All right, Lionel has gone Fulani. All right, that has been Dr. Lionel Rawlins von Frederick of the American University of Nigeria here in Yola, who is a security expert. He has been talking to us on the implication of the extension of the state of emergency in the 3 states of Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe. We take another break now, and when we come back, we have a medical practitioner, Dr. Raymond Chidama, join us to look at the World Pneumonia Day. Stay with us.